And the contenders for this year's Oscars have been announced in Los Angeles. Leading the pack are the multiverse fantasy Everything Everywhere All at Once, which picked up 11 nominations, including Best Picture and Director. And the World War I epic All Quiet on the Western Front. It was followed closely by the tragic comedy The Banshees of Inisherin. Australian actress Kate Blanchett has won her 8th nomination. Steven Spielberg got his 9th Best Director nomination. Well, 2 of the year's top box office hit, including Black Panther, Wakanda Forever and Top Gun Maverick, also scored nominations. Now let's take a look at the 10 films which have been nominated for Best Picture.
Here are the 10 nominees for Best Motion Picture of the year.
All Quiet on the Western Front. Malte Grünet, producer.
Avatar, The Way of Water. James Cameron and John Landau, producers.
The Banshees of Inisherin. Graham Broadbent, Pete Chernin, and Martin McDonough, producers.
Elvis, Baz Luhrmann, Catherine Martin, Gail Berman, Patrick McCormick, and Skylar Weiss, producers.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Daniel Kwan, Daniel Scheinert, and Jonathan Wong, producers.
The Fabelmans, Christy McCosco-Krieger, Steven Spielberg, and Tony Kushner, producers.
Tar, Todd Field, Alexandra Milchan, and Scott Lambert, producers.
Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, David Ellison, and Jerry Bruckheimer, producers.
Triangle of Sadness, Eric Hemmendorf and Philippe Gobert, producers.
And Women Talking, Dee Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, and Frances McDormand, producers.
And Thames' joint effort with Rihanna, Or Lift Me Up, has scored an Oscar nomination. It's the first time a Nigerian singer has been nominated at the Oscars. The song served as the lead single from the soundtrack album of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and was co-written by Thames. It peaked at #1 in Belgium, Hungary, Switzerland, and South Africa, and #2 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart.
Hold me down, keep me close, safe and sound.
Congratulations to Thames.
Indeed.
For bagging that nomination.
Yeah.
That's the show today. Up next, it's the morning show. It's a full day ahead, and every moment matters. I'm Kenneth Newman.
Indeed. I am Ndi Amugo saying goodbye.
Yesterday I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car.
I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Globe.
Hey, don't do this one for me. Because to make it set to me with sewing machine. I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other, with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won, 24 brand new cars, 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
A peak protein breakfast gets me to a great day. How do I know? Because my daddy goes through his work feeling good and always with a smile. Mommy is always filled with confidence. My sister is always in tune. And for me, learning new things becomes absolute fun. Because all day and every day, the peak goes on.
Start your day with a Peak Protein breakfast. Peak. Reach for your peak.
Nigeria, now we country. APC, not the party. Now, one man be a choice.
At last, the elections are here. Let's turn out en masse on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as President of Nigeria for a renewed hope and a better Nigeria. Vote APC, the party that shows a broom.
This is the heart of the business world in Lagos, the commercial capital of Africa's largest economy.
These aren't just numbers. They represent our nation's sharpest minds, our most successful investors, our most inspiring bosses. In Nigeria, business is in our DNA. From micro-business to startups to world-conquering brands. Every success story has something in common. They all started somewhere. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Global Business Report gets to the heart of business. We bring you the stories making headlines across the globe with in-depth analysis from experts and executives.
This is not business as usual. This is the Global Business Report.
Good morning. You're watching the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
I'm Ayon Mairo Ese.
And I'm Rafal Senior. I've got a great show lined up for you over the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's kickstart your day because the morning show begins right now.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was in Pretoria, South Africa on Monday for talks with the South African government, one of Moscow's most important allies in Africa. His visit comes as South African military prepares to host a joint military exercise with Russia and China on its east coast from February 17 to 27. The naval drills will coincide with the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has offered to mediate in the Ukraine conflict, insists that his government is impartial. But the political opposition and many civil society representatives in the country beg to differ. Lavrov's visit is the second in 6 months, and it comes ahead of the Russia-Africa summit, which was postponed last year due to the war in Ukraine. A new date is now fixed for July 2023. Joining us later on this show to discuss Lavrov's visit and the proposed South African military deal with Russia and China and how it will affect events on the continent is Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Nigeria's former Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Moving things along, we shall be engaging Benga Omotosho, Commissioner for Information, Lagos State, on the commissioning of Lagos Blue Rail Line by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday.
Let's catch up on news making headlines across the globe. Michael Wilson gives us an update on global business outlook. Rod Sudiri updates us on Africa business activities across the continent. We'll also review today's newspaper with Arise News analyst Manuel Lefeni. Ology up will fill us on what's trending around the world. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Welcome back to The Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Central Bank of Nigeria is insisting that old naira notes will cease to be legal tender in the country from the 1st of February as the January 31st date set for return of old notes to remain sacrosanct. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele rather urged those who might still be holding on to the old notes to turn them in, assuring them that they will not be harassed by anti-graft agencies. Emefiele also addressed some controversies surrounding the Apex Bank. Arise correspondent Amaka Ode-Walker reports.
I must say here that unfortunately I don't have good news for those who feel that we should shift the deadline.
Despite calls from the National Assembly and other pressure groups across the country for the extension of the deadline in view of some challenges, especially the non-availability of the new naira notes in banks, as well as automated teller machines, and with the January 31st deadline barely 7 days away, the central bank governor drops the bombshell. No going back. Emefiele says those who have the old notes had enough time to take them to the bank or swap them for the new ones within the time frame, but refused to do so. He also explains that the Apex Bank has so far mopped up about 1.5 trillion naira, while hoping to achieve about 2 trillion naira before the deadline.
For us, 90 days, in fact, we feel is 100 days is enough for anybody who has money or the old currency to deposit the money in the banks.
President Muhammadu Buhari held in December written to the Senate requesting an approval to the restructure of 23.7 trillion naira ways and means advances given to the federal government by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Questions had been raised about the section of the CBN Act which provides that the government should not borrow more than 5% of the previous budget. Emefiele provides clarity on the need for securitization as requested by President Buhari.
We feel as CBN, because we are a lender of last resort, that it will be irresponsible for us to sit idle. It will be a dereliction in our responsibilities and duties as lender of last resort to ignore the government and allow the economy and our Nigerians to suffer.
House of Representatives member Mohammed Kazaure had raised the alarm over an alleged theft of stamp duty proceeds running into 89 trillion naira. He had alleged that the Apex Bank had not remitted stamp duty revenues to government coffers as tax, insisting that the CBN remitted only 60% to the government while 40% goes to private pockets. Emefiele responds.
Total stamp duty collected from 2016 to date in our record, and we the banks have signed on their headed paper how much they've collected, because this is public accounts. We owe Nigerians accountability. Is 370 billion 686 million 315,505 naira 28 kobo. Out of that, FIRS has disbursed through FAC, or Ministry of Finance has disbursed to FAC, 226 billion 451 million 720,158 naira 88 kobo. And the balance in the account in CBN is 144 billion 234 million 595,346 naira 40 kobo.
Amaka Ode-Walker, Arise News.
Well, the National Assembly is calling on the central bank to extend the deadline for deposit of old naira notes by 6 months. Georgina Ndekwe Ezeyaka reports.
Since the 15th of December 2022, when the Central Bank of Nigeria released into circulation the redesigned 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes for public use, there has been public outcry regarding the shortage of the new notes. With just few days left to the January 31st deadline, when the old notes will cease to be a legal tender, banks and automated teller machines are still dispensing old notes to customers, despite the CBN's directive. The National Assembly is unhappy with this development, and the federal lawmakers are insisting that the January 31st deadline is unrealistic. But the CBN says the deadline remains.
There is no enough new notes in circulation. And in fact, the banks, ATMs that should be dispensing new notes are still dispensing only the old notes. And citizens still have a lot of old notes that they are unable to deposit in the banks.
Some of the lawmakers say the CBN governor should respect and comply with the resolutions of the National Assembly for the deadline to be extended by 6 months from the 31st of January to the 31st of July 2023.
There is a need for the CBN to look away from the elections, because everything about this is about the election. Look away from the election. Look at the issue of the ordinary people.
Forget catching any big man. The problem is with the smallholder, with our small traders, who now, because what it's going to do is going to affect general commerce in the country.
A lone voice, Senator Sam Egu from Ebonyi State, opposed the resolution, saying the culture of hoarding naira notes needs to be stopped.
If we cannot extend it, I want to assure you that there's no time we will reach and we say we are satisfied. So I want to oppose this motion. I want to stand with the CBN that the argument they have enunciated is good enough.
The National Assembly also urged the CBN governor to compel the banks to exchange old notes for new ones in consideration of financially excluded Nigerians.
We must have a policy of inclusion, getting our people who have no banks available to them to have banks available in whatever way possible.
Lawmakers say currencies in other countries are phased out gradually and not forced out, as the CBN is trying to do, hence the need for the resolutions of the National Assembly to be complied with.
For the past almost 10 years, my constituency is running without a single bank branch of any bank in my constituency. So people transact, do their activities, do their business, trading, and anything you can think of in cash.
Certain things should have been in place before the policy was rolled out, as good as the policy is.
The House of Representatives, on its part, later resolved to invite the CBN governor and bank managing directors to explain the claims and counterclaims of hoarding and availability or otherwise of the new naira notes. Georgina Ndekwe Ezeyaka, Arise News.
All right, let's go straight to it.
Yes, straight. A number of things to discuss. I'll just focus on the redesign. Yesterday ended the 2-day Monetary Policy Committee meeting, and on the back of that, the CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, had used the opportunity to brief Nigerians as to the sacrosanctity of the 31st of January deadline of the redesigning of the notes, and the fact that the 200 naira, the old 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira notes will no longer be used as legal tender. Now, following the first time this was announced by the CBN governor in October of 2022, there have been a number of back and forths. There have been a number of arguments for and arguments against. The CBN governor has indeed been asked, should I use the word summoned, to face the National Assembly to explain and brief the National Assembly, the House, as to why the decision and the length of time that's been given for this decision. He didn't appear, even though his deputy, one of his deputy governors, Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, had gone and gave a detailed brief to the National Assembly as to the reason behind the policy and also to explain how this will work out. Right from the very beginning, Rufai, the conversation has been around the fact that whilst the policy is good, and as mentioned by the a number of senators and House of Assembly members, there's no contention as to, I don't think there's been a lot of contention as to whether the policy is good or not. It's not illegal. It's within the remit of the CBN governor backed by the CBN Act. Therefore, it's not, the argument from time has not been about how good the policy is. It has consistently been about the timing and the readiness of the CBN and deposit money banks to adhere to the 31st of January deadline. Now, going back to the reason why the redesign was necessary, according to the CBN governor, I'll quote him when he first announced this. He said that he cited money hoarding, inflation, saying that currently there was 85% of the total money in circulation was outside the bank vaults. They needed to mop and have control of, at least have a control of the money in circulation in the nation. And then also he talked about even using it to starve criminals like kidnappers, bandits who would ask for ransom. Thank you, ransom, to starve them of cash, because if they know that there's no cash, the level of cash in circulation is not a lot, then they're not able to get the money that they would. So let's look at the arguments against. We'd said it before that if the CBN was going to have this kind of policy, particularly with such a tight deadline, then there ought to have been sensitization, particularly as the House members have cited, men and women, Nigerians living in rural areas. The CBN has heeded to that call, but unfortunately, despite the CBN governor saying they gave 100 days notice to Nigerians, it is not sufficient enough. They just started the cash swap program just recently. Why didn't that start immediately this policy was announced? Why didn't they put that as a plan when the policy was announced? They also talked about the fact that they were going into markets to sensitize traders as to the fact that these new notes, to show them the new notes, because we heard stories of traders refusing to collect the money. Bus conductors refusing to collect the new notes because they were not aware about the new notes. So these are some of the concerns. It's good that the CBN has now responded. They said earlier on that they were going to listen to the concerns of Nigerians and make adjustments where applicable. However, the CBN governor has come out now to say that there's no going back, there's no shifting, there's no moving on this 31st of January deadline. So the advice to Nigerians is if you have old naira notes with you, please go out there and deposit before the 31st of January and avoid the rush. Banks are going to be open on weekends as well to ensure to accommodate, the people who are going to have to deposit the money, money. Then on the hand of the CBN, the encouragement and the advice is to take this message to the hinterlands. Thankfully, they said that, with the cash swap program, they're going to be able to exchange in these areas of the unbanked. But it's very important that Nigerians are not excluded and people don't lose money, and the most vulnerable in society are not the most affected.
Dr. Batu?
Well, there were many issues raised by the central bank governor yesterday after the 289th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee. And they issued, after that meeting, communique number 146. So what the CBN governor was addressing, the issues that arose from that particular meeting. But first, let me take some of the other issues. I know naira redesign and deadline extension is a big issue. Now, while the CBN governor was briefing the press yesterday, he made a point about securitization of the money, ways and means, over 22 trillion lent to the federal government of Nigeria, which had been a big issue. And he made a point that the central bank has not done anything illegal with regard to performing its function as a lender of last resort. Of course, that's part of the definition of central banking. But the CBN governor's attention, we need to be drawn to the law. This morning I read a copy of the letter sent to the Senate by Tilewa Adebajo, who is a financial expert. And he pointed out that the Senate or the National Assembly of Nigeria, in discussing this proposal for securitization, should pay attention to Section 38(3)(a) of the CBN Act, which says that, look, all advances have to be paid by the end of the federal government financial year. You can't carry it forward. You can't carry it to the next financial year. He also quoted Section 38(3)(b) of the CBN Act, which says you cannot address those advances to the federal government either by way of promissory bills or by way of securitization. In other words, it will amount to a violation of the law this whole talk about securitization or, issuance of treasury bills. I think it's important to make that point. The other law that has been violated is the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So the question is not about the function of the central bank. Yes, but has the threshold been exceeded as prescribed under the Fiscal Responsibility Act? Has there been a violation as stated in the enabling law of the CBN itself? That's one. The other germane issue that the CBN governor tried to address has to do with stamp duty. There had been this allegation on the table that the CBN would seem to have made away with about 89 trillion of stamp duty. But he pointed out during the media briefing that, look, if you look at the stamp duty of Nigeria since 2016, it's just about 387 billion, and not more than that, from what they've been able to check in collaboration with the banks. And that in any case, in terms of the capacity of the banks, the entire banking system in Nigeria is worth just about 49 trillion. So where would the 89 trillion come from? I think it's important that he also address that. But in this particular case, he says that the CBN is going to engage independent auditors to take a look at stamp duty. So we expect that those independent auditors will either confirm what the CBN governor has said or give us figures that are different. But the basic figure that he gave out should be of serious attention to persons who have raised issues about stamp duty. But the audit that the CBN governor talked about should not just be with regard to stamp duty. It should be with regard to the CBN's own financials. I think many Nigerians would like to see, published accounts of the CBN. More so, as the CBN governor was saying, look, we are accountable to the public and we are transparent in our operations. That should be proven, by publishing the audited reports. Now, the third thing that, the CBN governor addressed has to do with the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee. 12 members voted, to act on that. Well, one member wanted the MPR increased by 150 basis points. 4 members wanted it increased by, 50 basis points. 70 members of the MPC wanted it increased by 100 basis points. At the end of the day, it was the 100 basis points that was chosen. So the MPR moved from 16.5% to 17.5%. All other rates, the liquidity ratio, the cash reserve ratio, the asymmetric corridor were retained. But what is the main argument of the CBN? The moderation, the slight moderation that we saw in December in the inflation rate from 21.47 coming down to 21.34% is not enough for monetary policy to be held or, for it to be reduced. Rather, what will be required is further tightening. The indication of that is that the CBN, the MPC, the Monetary Policy Committee, is certainly not sure that that moderation that we saw in inflation rate in December, will be sustained. And so they've done further tightening in recognition of headwinds that were further defined in that communique that was issued. But the question is, what is the implication? And we're likely to see the implication in terms of the performance of the equities market. Investors are likely to hedge their bets and move away from the stock market. And many investors who have commented on this, they've expressed worry. But of course, the CBN, the Monetary Policy Committee, is trying to be cautious in this regard. And finally, the issue of the extension of deadline, which is of interest. Well, the CBN governor says 90 days is enough. That's what the CBN Act states. But the question to ask is, what is the best practice in other parts of the world? Many have cited the example of England, where, when they change currency, they give you up to about a year so that there will be convenience. But here in Nigeria, the CBN governor says measures had been taken. Banks were to open on Saturdays. Well, those measures, I don't think they worked. Many banks did not open on Saturdays. The banks are the ones not making the new notes available because the CBN governor is saying those new notes are available. It's so bad now that, in fact, there was one wedding ceremony in Bako local government area of Niger State where the in-laws are saying you can't pay bride price with old notes. And I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you want a new wife, then bring new things. Don't come and bring old notes, even if that's on the jocular side. But that's how serious it is. Some supermarkets are no longer taking old notes. Everybody is asking for new notes that are not available. The irony of it, of course, is that what we're seeing here is the attitude of the average Nigerian. People were given 100 days, 90 days since October. Now, some newspapers are reporting this morning that there are long queues in the banks. We always wait till the last minute before we act. And as it was with the NIN, the National Identification Number, so it is with these old notes. Everybody is rushing now. One producer told me this morning that he had to use a bullion van to bring his 50,000 naira, and he will go to the bank to change. I say, bullion van to carry 50,000 naira. But okay, I hope he gets new notes.
Okay, so real quickly, I want to just go to the arguments. This argument we all look of America, their currency and all of that, a valid argument. And we should stop making arguments like that. What's the logical, empirical rebuttal? This is it. Can you hold $100,000 in cash in your house in America? In the UK, can you hold $100,000 in cash? I'll give you an instance. Even in the UK, ordinary £50 notes, most places will not collect it from you. The best they will collect is £20. In fact, when you spend £50, they know that you're either just coming from abroad or they'll have to call in for security checks. So there's too much money in circulation, and that's why we're doing this. And that's why you see monetary policies do not work. You're comparing yourself with America where monetary policies work. Hello? When the Fed gives a tightening, you see the knock-on effect on inflation. But the CBN has been struggling because it's difficult, because too much cash in the hands of people and politicians. Secondly, I'd like to ask, what's the role of the National Orientation Agency? Or sell it to people so that we can do a better job? Because in all of this, nobody talks about the National Orientation Agency, which is to address people and tell them about the things government is doing, and the CBN. So what's the role of National Orientation Agency in all of this? Because we keep saying there was no sensitization. Please show me one ad bought by the National Orientation Agency. And I'm sure they have a budget for the activities too every year. So where does the money go? Anyway, that's a talk for another day. The third argument we make is the fact that, there are timelines. I'm happy Dr. Bati enunciated those arguments in the CBN Act by saying that it's what is in the Act. So let's just follow the law, just like we should also follow the law of securitization and ways and means. The fourth argument I would like to also make is about stamp duties. Anyway, I had said it constantly on this show that those numbers were fictitious and were laughable. So are you saying that Nigeria collected close to half of its GDP in stamp duty? The entire banking asset is about 77 trillion. So obviously we know it was laughable. And when the CBN said they were going to get the big four auditors to check in, yes, they should get it to check in. Please, I think we should follow the deadline. It's for the best of the country, and we are seeing effects. I kept on making the argument on the show that if we don't see any knock-on effect as regards inflation, then probably the policy is not working. But now we've seen it trickling down. I know some people made other arguments, but we're seeing the effect on inflation, and it is time to start reining this in. As regards tightening, yes, that's the way to go when you have inflation. I'm not surprised 100 basis points is now the order of the day, 17.5%. Obviously, I think even the next MPC will still have to raise interest rates because we have to fight inflation that is over 21%, which is chaotic as we speak. So CBN is doing everything in line. But the only time we can make a grouse with all of what they have done is if we don't see results. Are inflation's number coming down? Yes. Are we having a knock-on effect on the economy? Yes. So we need to tighten the currency, and Nigerians should change the way and the approach they have to currency and stop making unfounded arguments like, in America, take $500,000 cash to the bank in America and see maybe people will not be called in, or £500 cash to the bank in the UK and see people will not be called in. So the things they don't do in America, you do them here and you expect American rates to apply. Let's make better arguments. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and Road Sudiri to give us updates on global and Africa business activities. Stay with us.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vault it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, revolt. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business, revolt.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Yesterday I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car. I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow is making set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other, with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won, 24 brand new cars, 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. The Asia-Pacific markets are suffering from two things. First of all, China and Hong Kong still closed, obviously, for the Lunar New Year holiday, and the others really just searching for direction, although Australia has recorded its highest inflation for many years, since 1990, at 7.8%, mainly about car fuel and also food as well. And banks have been trading slightly higher on the back of that, but basically not a great day for stocks, given that rise in inflation in Australia. Taiwan, its president is saying in a note to Pope Francis, actually, that war with China is not an option, and also saying that what Taiwan's after is some sort of constructive interaction with Beijing. Well, of course, China claims Taiwan as part of its own territory, but that's what they're saying at the moment. As far as the United States is concerned, relatively flat, really, as far as the futures are concerned. Microsoft, a bit of a mix here, saved a bit by cloud, but generally speaking, its revenues falling, hit by COVID and so on. But in its guidance ahead was fairly what's being described as lackluster. But however, don't despair too much. US defence stocks obviously doing fairly well over the additional supply of weapons to Ukraine, and more corporate earnings coming up today. Whether or not they will signal a recession or not exactly sure. 65% of them who've reported already have actually reported stronger than expected results, but we're yet to hear from Tesla, Boeing, IBM, AT&T, who will go to post today. And speaking of Tesla, an extra $3.6 billion investment in Nevada, a wish to make batteries there for its new truck called the Semi, and also to gear up to supplying batteries of 2 million cars as well. Department of Justice in the United States has started yet another antitrust suit against Google, this time against ads. The complaint is the usual one, that Google is using its power to keep other people and keep other ad revenue down in its rivals. And it joins the DOJ's second action against, or rather suit against Google, joins the states of California, Colorado, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, Virginia, and also Arizona. Which are all joining together. So really, high tech, big tech is actually coming up against the regulators, much as we thought it would. Let's turn our attention to the media, and the reunion between Fox and News Corp is now off, according to Rupert Murdoch. Instead, Fox News Corp is going to pursue a digital commercial property acquisition, which they're invested in as well. Shareholders felt that the joining together of News Corp and Fox would not give them as much money as the separate companies would. So at the moment, that reunion is off the table. Global shipping. Now, it's a good indicator, this really, of what's actually going on. What's finding out it's being hurt by weak demand for China goods. It's putting damper on the expected economic boost that China may eventually give. Cancellation levels, apparently amongst cargoes, are exceptionally elevated, as the shippers put it. So that index actually showing that less shipping going on as would be hoped globally. Argentina, now we've been talking about that, haven't we? Of course, they won the World Cup. And their finance minister, Sergio Massa, has been saying that despite what you feel about Argentina, gas and mining boom is about to happen. They've started to export gas to Chile. They will be exporting a bit more to Brazil, and they are going to be mining lithium and other rare metals as soon as they can. And according to the finance minister, it's likely that they will be repaying the debt that they have accrued from various donor countries. Let me take you to the EU and the Eurostar, the express train that runs from London to Paris. 30% less passengers. Basically, what they're blaming are the post-Brexit checks, bottlenecks at stations, and so on. They used to run 18 trains to Paris. Now they just run 14 because of that, and so their revenues on passengers are actually down. UK, Amazon starts its first British strike. The workers, the GMB union, says workers are actually facing worse conditions than the robots do in their factories. So that's about to GMB union. That's about to happen. And of course, they won't be unminded in the fact that that's what's happening in the United States as well. So union power beginning to grow in Amazon. The workers there don't like being measured hour by hour, which includes their lavatory breaks as well. UK debt is growing, record high now, record 30-year high, not totally unexpected given the actual help that the government is actually pushing out towards energy costs as well, plus the weakness in the economy, which is something which the Office of Budget Responsibility have been noting. They've been saying there's been a decline in forecasts now to 0.5% growth next year, when it's reckoned to be much higher than that. So a shallow recession, but lasting much longer is the view from them. And finally, oil, momentum now starting to fade. I did say yesterday there was a bit of exhaustion, as it was put from traders, thinking that China's rapid return to the markets would bring up the demand for oil. It isn't happening yet, but it's still feeling as though the momentum is beginning to run out. Running on fumes is how one market trader put it this morning. That is the global view.
Real quickly, Michael, I think I'd like to go back to Madam Liz Truss and Kwesi Kwarteng, which happens to be my West African compatriot here. Isn't the game of economic Teddy Picker they played in the space of a week or a month, hasn't it destroyed the UK so much now that the interest rates that went up since then on the UK debt keeps going up? And that's why I asked the question again, Michael. How much did the bank, the central bank in the UK,
the Bank of England pay to guide the gilt markets? Because all of these increases can be linked to what happened between Madam Liz Truss and Kwesi Kwarteng and the game of economic Teddy Picker they were playing.
Yeah, no question it did. I mean, that whatever you think about that hiatus in financial orthodoxy, put it like that. I mean, some people would say unfunding tax cuts and the rest of it. Yes, certainly it did. And certainly the bank came in and spent billions trying to put the markets to bed. In fact, it may have made the government may have made a slight profit on that. But again, given the OBR's current projections now, I think that's probably out of the window. And the budget, which is coming up in March, will be incredibly tough. I just think, generally speaking, that, you know, putting the country back on the road again was fine, whilst Sunak appeared to be, you know, the knight in shining armour. Now, of course, given the various scandals around Tory party chairman and so on, that clearly isn't the case. I think that's politics. Again, I'm not a political expert, but I would put it down to that. I think that things are going to be very, very tough indeed. I think it's the debt figures right now. It doesn't really matter what was spent then. The debt figures going forward are going to be a big drainer, a big drag, a big headwind for the economy. And even though the OBR rather is reducing its forecast, it's still saying it'll be a shallow recession, but it is saying that it probably will last longer, all through next year, as far as I can see.
So let's talk about what's going on at Amazon. So later on today in Coventry, Amazon in Coventry in the UK, about 300 workers are said to be going on strike. I mean, in the past, Amazon has been quite hostile to unions. We discussed what happened in New York just a few weeks back, about a week or two ago, and now in the United Kingdom. And this time it's over pay rise. Last year, Amazon increased the pay of their starting workers by 50 pence to be about 10.50 to 11.45, £11.45. The UK's minimum wage is £9.45. I believe it's £9.50. And they're looking to increase in April of this year. They're going on strike this year. Amazon is adamant. What's the future for not just Amazon, but other tech companies? We've had reports of layoffs in recent times. What's the overview in that sector?
I don't know how unionised the other tech companies are. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? You heard Google employees were saying, well, why me? I mean, what criteria have you used to lay me off amongst the 18,000 or 12,000 or whatever the figure will eventually turn out to be, that they're actually laying off? I think that what's happening with with Amazon rather, is that the workers don't like every single minute of every single hour being surveyed by the management, and even the amount of time that they spend in the lavatory, going to the lavatory and coming back, is deducted from the amount of work that they do during the day. They simply don't like that kind of supervision. I mean, you're right about the minimum wage, but the fact of the matter is, it's now unionised, and it's now something which Amazon is going to take hold of, and it will reduce the share price. There's no question about that. But Amazon can afford it. Amazon will just have to learn the way, and certainly I think that learn the way of unions. And certainly I think that that judgment in the United States on Staten Island warehouse will certainly be ringing very, very hard in the ears of the GMB as they go on strike today.
Well, Michael, two quick things. The bulletin of the atomic scientists has now moved the doomsday clock close to midnight, 90 seconds to midnight, they say, and you know that this is a global threat. And the reason for this is, of course, the build-up in Ukraine. Germany and Poland are sending, support for Ukraine. The US is sending Abrams tanks. The UK is sending Challenger vessels. Germany is sending Leonard tanks and all of that. And this bulletin of the atomic scientists says, well, this is a global threat. Are the markets responding yet? In the same manner in which they responded immediately to the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, or the markets are just still watching whether there will be a blowout this year or not, with Putin threatening nuclear strikes. And then the second point has to do with the prediction by Bill Gates in Australia, I think on Monday or yesterday or so, that it's better to be born 20 years from now than at any time ever in the past. He's very optimistic about the future of mankind, despite all the devastating scenarios that the world faces. Are you optimistic about the future? Or you think this our world is truly 90 seconds to midnight?
Well, I think we're all in a better place than we were 100 years ago in terms of health and longevity. And whilst there are still people starving in the world, I feel as though it is moving to a slightly better place, notwithstanding the war in Ukraine. As far as the scientists, I mean, I'm neither optimistic nor pessimistic. I am. What's the word? I believe it when I see it. It's like religion, really, isn't it? It's like a lot of people say, well, I may as well pray, but I'm not exactly sure of the existence of God. Agnostic, I think, is the word. So I'm agnostic about the future. As far as forecasting and Armageddon is concerned with the scientists, well, good luck to them. I think that forecasting is a very, very difficult business. They may be right, who's to know? But do they know more than we do? Suspect not.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers.
Good morning. Let's say hello to you properly. Mr. Davos. Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
It's
a warmer climate here, much more accommodating.
What did you bring?
What did I bring? I brought good tidings.
Implications.
Oh, I brought good tidings.
Davos implications.
Well, no, look. I mean, you've touched on it. I mean, the Central Bank of Nigeria, surprising markets really. If you had asked me yesterday what they were going to do, I would have said they would hold rates constant at 16.5, but they raised it to 17.5. If you look at the parameters, everything else was kept in place. So 17.5 benchmark rates, the asymmetric corridor minus 100 basis points to plus 700. And then you've got
plus 100 minus 700.
Plus 100 minus 700. Thank you, Doctor. And then you've got the CR 32.5, and then the cash reserve ratio at 30%. So that's what we are. Yeah. So those are the figures right there. So yeah, plus 100 minus 700 basis points around the asymmetric corridor, and then you've got those figures. So the thing is, look, borrowing rates are still. They're climbing, and it's going to get more expensive to get loans. And if you look on the secondary side, if you're going to get a loan from a commercial bank or a microfinance bank, you're looking at 28, 30+%. So this is, I mean, they're still fighting inflation. As far as inflation is concerned, yeah, we saw it inch downwards a smidgen, but we still have, excess of 21.34 for December. So that's that. And the Naira notes, you touched on that extensively. The central bank says they're not going back on it. We were given 100 days to deposit our own money into our own accounts. That's basically the timeline we're given. Take your own. If the CBN had given an incentive of 10 Naira for every 1 Naira for every 10 Naira you deposit to your account, I'm sure people would have rushed to the banks to go and make their deposit. So I don't know why people are panicking. Take your money, go and deposit it. The issue though is the hinterlands, the rural areas, and they've started a cash swap scheme where they'll be giving cash to their agents. They've got about 1 million or 1.4 million around the country, which will be going to the rural areas to essentially swap the cash. You've touched on the National Assembly asking for a 6-month deadline. CBN says that is not going to happen. But ways and means. What do we do about ways and means? We keep going on about the law. If you lend somebody money and you give them parameters and they break the parameters, you can wave the parameters in their face and say you broke the agreements you made. But the debt is still there, and the debt has to be paid one way or the other. So if you're saying you can't issue promissory notes, you can't securitize the debt, you must pay back in a financial year, the 22 trillion is still sitting on the ground staring at all of us in the face, and the money has to be paid off one way or the other. So at this point, probably the law has to be, that ship has sailed, that horse has left the stable, and something has to give. The money has to be paid back. If not, look, there is a trial that just started in England. Was it not yesterday or the day before? That P&ID trial. where Nigeria is on the hook for $11 billion. Now, whether it was a scam or not, it happened during the Jonathan administration before the Buhari administration came into power over that gas agreement. If Nigeria has to pay that $11 billion, that is 1/3, 30% of our FX reserves. So that is still sitting in one corner. So it is really apparent. It is really, we need to do something about this debt, this 22 trillion of ways and means. And repeating the fact that you're breaking the law doesn't get any of us anywhere. What is the solution? Speaking of solutions, I know you have a response, but give us a solution. Huh? The Abuja Kaduna rail line apparently is grounded because there's no diesel. This is one of the most bizarre delayed. But Ayo, diesel is deregulated. The only thing that has moved is the price. So, look, these rail lines have been delayed because of terrorist attacks. They've been delayed because their price points are not realistic. You buy tickets physically. There's no electronic way to do it. It's a simple revenue and expenses thing. If you're not moving volumes of rides up and down, and if your price points are not realistic, you cannot afford to pay for diesel that is up by 300% or so year on year. So, and anyway, I don't want to get into the blue rail that we just inaugurated yesterday. Look, finally, look at today's headlines. There are political aspirants, leadership aspirants who keep making promises after promises. Look at this day. I think it's, what has Mr. Efele call it? Below the masthead, Atiku, I'll change our security architecture and I'll grow the economy. Tinubu, I'll end youth frustration in Nigeria if elected. The security architecture is technology because you have to increase surveillance in order to be able to respond quickly enough. You are not manufacturing that technology in-house, so you're going to have to import it. So for you to change your security architecture, that is an FX charge on the country because you have to import whatever security you're going to use to improve your surveillance. And then maybe train people to be able to do that, maybe increase your security force. That's all more money. That is on Atiku's side. Mr. Tinubu was in Abia State a couple of days ago saying that he was going to turn Abia into a manufacturing hub and he's going to boost their manufacturing exports. This is one state. The Manufacturing Association of Nigeria over and over again has said power, foreign exchange, and interest rates are the reason why manufacturing is not moving ahead in Nigeria. How is that going to be addressed? So there's no discussion on innovation. In fact, speaking of innovation, let me show you a machine I saw while I was in Switzerland. This very funny-looking Swiss butter machine. Yeah. So this machine, when you're having breakfast, is in a hotel room. You push a button. I hope we have the video. You push a button, and a piece of butter falls on your plates when you get breakfast, where your bread is. It's on an unnecessary machine, right? Because in the same area where you're having breakfast, you can just simply grab a piece of butter and put it in. But they have lights, right? So they have electricity constantly, and they're able to just sit down and think of new things to make and to manufacture. Okay, it's a shame we don't have the video, but I'll probably show it to you tomorrow. Innovation is what we need. As far as your technology, your manufacturing hub, your whatever promises that need to be made, since the election is so close, we really need to have an innovation discussion, and we're not having it right now.
So let me go to ways and means.
Solution, or how do you solve them?
Wait, Rotus now, wait.
Yes.
See, this is ways and means. We have broken all the laws possible.
Yes, I agree.
According to the books.
Yes.
But the solution they have put forward is also pushing the evil day forward. But let me tell you this. The solution, the ideal solution, will have been allowing us to bite the bullets. Probably when we pay those high interest rates, like the president talked about in his speech, when we pay once or twice, we'll learn not to do that again. But we know there are going to be dire consequences. So like I said on this show, we will concede for them to break the law further. Maybe the president has told the National Assembly, the rubber-stamped National Assembly to go ahead and securitize. Those ones will securitize it very soon.
Okay, so we're in agreement now.
Wait, see, I'm coming.
Okay.
But it doesn't make it the right solution. We will concede for them to break the law further. You know, when Yoruba say Dasi Elara,
leave it.
We've just poured it on your body. But we know what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
But we just have to concede for them because do we have an impute? The National Assembly is rubber stamp. They will do it very soon. It's just a matter of, and all the government agencies have talked about it. Moving on. Infrastructure, there goes infrastructure.
Yeah.
When we do infrastructure, we don't plan through it, we don't think through it. Things like diesel become the problem. I think moving forward, It is time we have to bite the bullet. We have to look at ways how to decentralize, if possible. Privatize the NRC. The NRC, Nigerian Railway Corporation, is not fit for purpose.
I agree.
They can't effectively run all these lines.
Facts, I agree.
Bring private sector in, privatize it. People will have to adjust to the rates, set benchmark quotas, look at it, how it's going to work.
Ticket prices have to go up?
The ticket price will definitely go up.
Have to go up?
So it's going to be survival of the fittest. Those that can compete will compete. But that's the effective way to... If you continue to allow NRC run it, it's going to be tokenism. We are going to keep having stops and things like that. But NRC running, they have to put everything in place, put security in place, put infrastructure in place. You talked about rejigging security architecture and political promises. Some of them, roads can be done inside. See, I'm doing a research now that shows that reportage, having a mechanism for constant reportage alone can reduce security incidences by over 20 to 30%.
Okay, that sounds plausible.
There are a lot of young Nigerians developing those apps for reportage and monitoring now. It might not be holistic surveillance. Take them in the room and use them. Make your Nigerian whiz kids work for this country. They are there. Go and find them. Formerly, we had something called Ideas Hub that was run by the government. I used to be a mentor on Ideas Hub. We should have more of that to be able to discover those talents within. Then the ones we can buy overseas, we buy from overseas. That's your butter machine.
Oh, okay, there it is. Okay, so fine. There's the machine now.
Right.
So you can see.
Just one point, I'll just say.
Wait, hold on. I want you to take a look at this thing. That's
the butter.
You push the button, right? And then it is so useless, but still, like I said, if you have lights, you have ideas. Go ahead.
You have lack of infrastructure continuously stifles innovation.
Right.
How can you innovate in a nation where you're thinking of how to power up your business? There's no time because what's on ground is not even enough or is not sufficient enough for you to do business in an enabling environment. And so for the man who invented that useless butter machine, there was a lot of time on his hands because he's not thinking of queuing on for fuel, thinking of how to make business sense so that he makes profit because prices have gone up in terms of running his or her business. And so if we must innovate as a nation, we must provide an enabling environment for young people to thrive without thinking of things to distract.
And by the way, sorry, Doctor, right before you come in, I just mentioned the interest rate at 17.5%. We still do not have, as far as I know, any solution from the candidates on how to bring interest rates down to where borrowing can be easier. Doctor, please go ahead.
Talking about innovation, my favorite scholar on the subject is Peter F. Drucker, who says, innovate, innovate, innovate. If you don't innovate, either as an individual or as a business or as a country, you'll be left behind because we're in the age of constant innovation and entrepreneurship. But to talk about the Nigerian Railway Corporation, when the NRC decided to suspend the Warri-Itakpe line as a result of the train derailing somewhere in the forest, I said, look, it's the Nigerian Railway Corporation itself that should be suspended. Because what is happening with the NRC is complete embarrassment. When the federal government decided on December 5 to reopen that Abuja-Kaduna train line, there was no promise that the Minister of Transportation did not make. He said they are taking every possible measure and all of that. But what we're seeing here is what looks like, lack of complete preparedness with implications for business, for persons who patronize these train services that they provide. However, in this particular case, the explanation that I put out with regard to diesel shortage was that the diesel that they got was substandard after it was submitted to laboratory tests. Well, that doesn't sound quite convincing to me. Why is it that today is terrorism, next tomorrow is derailment, next tomorrow is attack on train station? We're just not ready.
At all, not at all.
So if we're not ready, don't let us keep ridiculing ourselves. Train services run smoothly in other parts of the world. So it's not rocket science that is involved. Now, the other issue that you raised, you were saying, the CBN and the federal government, they've broken the law. If they have broken the law, then let us leave that and then try to find solution. No, that's not the principle.
Okay.
Government is expected to operate under the rule of law. When government breaks the rule of law, breaks the law, government puts all of us in trouble. That's the principal argument in how government breaks the law. Jethro Lieberman You know, and what we find in Nigeria is that people are constantly breaking the law. And because of the kind of suggestion you make that, okay, if you break the law, let's move on and look for a solution. Then people will have the incentive to think that they can always break the law and get away with it. You will recall that the DG of the Debt Management Office said, look, with this 22 trillion, if you don't securitize it, the interest on it will go up. And by June, we will be saddled with 77 trillion. By the time you add promissory notes, you add other, debts that have been incurred. Who is going to bear that burden of 77 trillion?
We will.
We will bear the burden.
We will.
Okay, so, we can't say you can break the law and get away with it. There must be sanctions for
right,
bad behavior.
Yes.
When people use the machinery of government to break the law.
Agreed. But, Doctor, how do we pay off the money?
Well, let them do a public hearing. In the statement that I quoted earlier on this program, what's his name?
The debt management.
Adebayo,
Yes.
Tilewa Adebayo.
Yes.
He said, look, one of his recommendations, hold a public hearing, let the experts come and help you out of it. Don't be a rubber stamp National Assembly and say you've broken the law, we have securitized it, let us move ahead.
Exactly, the money has been spent. The money is gone.
Securitize it. It's still a proposal.
Yeah, but doctor, the securitization, Rufai read the law here. The law does not allow for securitization. It doesn't allow for...
Section 38, 3B.
Right.
Of the CBN Act.
Does not allow... So that's the thing. If you're saying you can't securitize, you can't promissory those, what do you do? That's the point I'm making.
They've caused the problem.
So they will fix it.
Okay, thank you, Rotis.
Thank you so
much. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Nigeria's former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Haruna, Bisi, Akman, Unduka, how will I want to do on election day?
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote to, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu. On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote to, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
People of Nigeria, make we all come out on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president. Make Nigeria for better. Make you put your hand for APC, the party where show broom. Not forget now broom you go put your hand in. Bam!
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote to, I go put my hand for Tinubu.
My brother, my sister, do you know that winning an election is not only about getting the majority vote? For that your candidate to be declared winner of the election, he or she must secure 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all states plus the FCT to be president, and 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all local governments of a state to be governor. This is constitutional, and every presidential candidate has had to pass this threshold. Even governors have had to make this mark to get elected in their states. We live in one country with different languages, religions, and ethnic groups. This is why it is not enough to have only northern votes, or southern votes, or eastern votes, or western votes. The only way to get elected as president or governor is by gaining enough support across the country and states. Let us make sure that we know now so that we don't cause an issue tomorrow. This message is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was welcomed by his South African counterpart for talks in Pretoria on Monday, in a visit that has sparked criticism against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. His visit comes as South African military prepares to host a joint military exercise with Russia and China on its east coast from February 17 to 27. The naval drills will coincide with the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Lavrov's visit is the second in 6 months, and it comes ahead of the Russia-Africa Summit, which was postponed last year due to the war in Ukraine. A new date is now fixed for July 2023. Joining us right now to discuss the proposed South African military drill with Russia and China is Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Nigeria's former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Good morning, Prof. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Rufai. And good morning, Aya.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Prof, South Africa, naval drill with Russia and China. The South African Foreign Affairs Minister, Nanedi Pandor, was quoted as saying yesterday that, look, this is South Africa's own choice, and South Africa, as a sovereign state, has the right to engage in diplomatic relations as it deems with its partners. More so, as South Africa is a member of the BRICS, and this is just in the course of normal diplomatic relations. But why do you think there has been so much objection, criticism of this proposed naval drill in the Indian Ocean among these three countries?
Thank you very much for your question. The lady, the South African Foreign Minister, has been addressing all the wrong issues. Nobody is saying that South Africa does not have the right as a sovereign nation to pick and choose its friends internationally. But South Africa is not an island unto itself. Let me give a bit of a background to this. The South Atlantic Ocean is the only ocean in the world where there is no permanent superpower confrontation or permanent superpower presence. You have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which handles their confrontation in the North Atlantic. As far back as 1976, please mark my dates, as far back as 1976, the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, at that time, proposed a Nigeria, Brazil, Angola axis to spearhead the protection of the South Atlantic Ocean and prevent the incursion into it by the superpowers. It didn't go down well in Nigeria. Our socialist colleagues in the university said, oh, Angola is newly independent. It's a socialist country. Nigeria and Brazil are capitalist countries, and that our proposal was to muscle the independence of Angola. Nothing happened. In fact, I almost lost my job as Director General of the Nigerian Institute over it. It was T.Y. Danjuma who said there's nothing wrong with the proposal. The sitting president at that time couldn't understand where I was coming from, and whatever he doesn't understand, he finds it as threatening to his own posture as the heavy brain of foreign policy in Nigeria at that time. So nothing came out of it. But even as Minister of External Affairs, I again came up with the proposal, this time with the understanding of President Babangida, who knew where I was coming from. But you see, it entailed, because people, people say, if you are going to blame the fox, but blame the chicken also for straying outside. Nigeria has continuously abdicated its responsibility for promoting genuine and pristine ideas in this area. Part of the problem is that the Nigerian Navy prefers to be a coastal navy and monitor the activities of pirates, monitor the activities of oil bunkers, and ignore the fact that our exclusive economic zone stretches 200 all the way into the deep sea, and that Japanese, Chinese, and other fishing vessels were coming to scrape from the bottom our fisheries and other economic assets in the deep blue sea. They've turned their back on that. And you have a situation in West Africa where there are more admirals than there are ships. Because if the Nigerian Navy had been prepared to be a deep blue sea navy, it would have been in a position actually to carry this proposal about protecting the South Atlantic Ocean from incursion by superpower presence. Now, let me make this clear. Nobody is saying ships cannot visit. Naval ships are all over the world visiting each other. They are training their own people, and they need to have their ships refueled. So they stop by on their way to refuel, exchange flags, shake hands with fellow admirals. It happens all the time. I recall a time when Brazil was having, I don't know, whether it was 100 years of its navy, and it invited naval ships from all over the world to come and help us celebrate that occasion. You can imagine the pride of Nigerians who were in Brazil when a Nigerian naval ship, captained at that time by Captain Aduwo, showed up in Brazil and took part in the, ships, sailing by with flags flying and so on. That happens all the time. Nobody is protesting about that. Even for us here in Nigeria, French ships, American ships, British ships, from time to time dock at Apapa. They exchange flags, they refuel, and they go their own way. If you have maybe ships that can join them in firing a few guns, you do that. Nobody is protesting that. But when at a time when there is a cleavage in the world between On one hand, the Western global North, and on the other hand, what I would call the East or Pacific global North, represented by Russia and China. It is unwise to bring that kind of conflict into the South Atlantic Ocean. I think that's the point we are making. The timing is wrong. That's number one. Number two, for heaven's sake, the South African Navy has 4 corvettes. Only one in the past 2 years have gone out to sea. They have 3 submarines, I believe. None has gone out to sea. So what joint exercises are you having? The joint exercise between the rider and the horse? You just want to get yourself dragged into a conflict which is not of your own making. Have we been consulted? When I say we who are also guardians of the South Atlantic Ocean, Nigeria, Angola, Brazil on the other side, all those of us who pledged to make the South Atlantic Ocean conflict-free, have we been consulted? My investigation is that we have not been consulted. And if there's going to be joint exercise in this area, why not between South Africa, Angola, Nigeria, and then on the other side, Brazil, and which other South American nations have blue sea navies? Why not with them? Is South Africa pretending to be a superpower now? That you will get involved in the conflict of superpowers? You're a medium power. There are medium powers that surround this area. So I think that the criticism has come, number one, because of the timing. Two, because you are getting involved with, well, should we say friends who are by far more powerful than you. John F. Kennedy was warned, don't ride on the back of a tiger, because the only way to get off is to end up inside the tiger. I think that is the general background to why people, or some of us, are raising red flags at this time about the implication of what South Africa is about to do. Let me say one more thing. This reminds me of something that happened when I was a foreign minister. When Libya went to tweak American, tail, American toes, or whatever language you want us to use. What's his name now? Reagan was in the White House. Reagan got so pissed off, he sent bombers to bomb Tripoli. And we kept quiet. And of course, again, our so-called socialist left-wingers in Nigeria now came after my blood. Why are we not supporting Libya in its confrontation with the United States? I then came up with the doctrine of consultation, that Gaddafi did not consult us when he was going to get into this fracas with the United States. Why should he now be seeking our support when the Americans decide to return blows? We are too important, even as we have problems on our hand. We are too important to turn ourselves into errand boys. So other countries will now snap their fingers and we will go running. Of course, in order to, again, please the public, IBB sent me on a condolence visit where I met Gaddafi, his 2 sons, signed condolence books. I have pictures of myself and Gaddafi's 2 sons that we took under olive trees. So South Africa should be careful. South Africa is not an island unto itself.
All right, thank you very much,
It is an African
Prof,
country.
for giving us that background into the relationships. But when you trace the relationship between, as Doctor had highlighted, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, despite you saying that South Africa is not a superpower, but a medium power, they have enjoyed relationships since South Africa joined them in 2010. Therefore, this is not the first time they're having joint drills. In 2019, they had a joint drill. However, as you have highlighted, the difference at this point is the timing. The proposed joint military drill would coincide with 1 year after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And of course, the fact that South Africa, even though maintaining the fact that they are neutral in the war, their body language speaks a bit differently. They abstained from the UN vote to condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine, and they haven't, when their foreign minister, Ms. Pandor, had spoken against it, she had to withdraw her statement. So despite the fact that you have mentioned that South Africa should not meddle in the big men's war, as it were, they have a stake. They have enjoyed relationships with Russia over time, and Russia has invested in the South African, economy as well. What should South Africa? Should South Africa then be speaking against one of their close allies in the BRICS, in that BRICS nation, the joint working, or should they better align with their African counterparts like Nigeria? Then where does Nigeria fit into all these things? Because we call ourselves superpower on the African continent, but we're not even part of the BRICS nation. We're not part of the five countries that make up BRICS.
Thank you. Foreign policy is not a 1 + 1 = 2. It's filled with so many nuances that when you are designing a policy to address one particular issue, it's not one factor that comes into play. I mean, Brazil is a member of BRICS. It is calibrating its relationship with even other members of BRICS. India is a member of BRICS. Do you know that actually there is, I won't say a conflict, but relationship between China and India in terms of the presence of their navies in the Indian Ocean is not a pleasant one. There is an element of competition there, and yet they are members of BRICS. You shouldn't be more BRICS than other members of BRICS. Yes, one factors in the relationship between Russia and South Africa way back from the time of the anti-apartheid struggle. But I believe that South Africa has paid its dues to Russia. It doesn't mean that you are going to follow Russia down every line. In deciding how to handle a foreign policy conflict, you have several choices. Support one side, oppose one side, be neutral, be non-participating, and if you really find that your relationship is about to be threatened by what is going on, you whisper into the ears of your allies. China is doing that same thing now. You recall that at Davos, the Treasury Secretary of the United States met with the high-ranking Chinese diplomat who was present there. Now, they are talking. And they said, if you read that communique, that they were frank, positive. Those of us who are in this field, we decode words that are used. But now, to me, that is a warning to Russia by China. We are not going to allow this your war in Ukraine to now affect our relationship with the United States. There was a time it almost looked like it was going to affect it. Or we are not even going to allow our differences over Taiwan to affect other areas. And that is how you play this politics. If you just don't go bull into one corner and get yourself trapped, especially when it is not your own quarrel. Africa has this doctrine from the time of the OAU. The boundaries you inherit at independence must be respected. And that is a solid, up till now, a solid principle surrounding our attitude towards boundary changes. So to that extent, it's not, saints are not fighting saints. Nations must realize that, and you then plot your way through that saint.
Okay.
You've asked the question, where is Nigeria in all of this? Yeah. And you are quite right. Nigeria itself is guilty of an abdication of leadership in this area. And we keep giving up opportunities for us to exact this leadership. One thing you have to grant the first Obasanjo administration was that he sought to build a strong navy. Contracts were given out for naval ships to be built in, I believe it was in Japan or South Korea or somewhere along that line. How many of those ships are still functioning? Have we concentrated on, have we even debated and come to a conclusion about the role of the Navy in terms of our maritime neighbors? We seem to forget that apart from our neighbors in the north, our other neighbors covering from Badagry all the way to Port Harcourt, is the Atlantic Ocean. We seem not to be factoring the importance of that. It's only when other powers now come and start establishing presence there that we then wake up. We are a reactive nation. We don't like to think ahead. I've given you the example that 1976 was when we at the Institute proposed a solution to safeguarding the South Atlantic Ocean. That's never been taken up by anybody. The Navy itself is guilty of this. They will rather concentrate on the coastal areas. When, we often say, best international practices. That's what we go after. Well, most coastal nations, important coastal nations, who are serious, have a coastal guard separated from the normal Navy so that the Navy can concentrate on threats and possibilities in the deep blue sea. Each time even at the National Conference in 2014, we proposed, or there was a proposal for establishment of a border guard that passed, and a coastal guard, all naval officers, both serving, retired, all the admirals and everything, they rose up as one against that. Why? Why are you more interested in oil bunkering activities than turning your Navy into the deep blue sea, where it is supposed to go? And let the Coastal Guard handle pirates and handle... it is an abdication of leadership, of influence, of responsibility by Nigeria, especially since the time of the second coming of General Obasanjo. Obasanjo pursued an activist foreign policy during his second term. But since then, we haven't had any president who is interested in foreign policy.
Okay. So let's go straight to it now. I will make some statements, which probably you might say I'm just try to posit some ideas, but they are frontal statements. This is an open indication, an open invitation for war on the African continent to join what is shaping up, which we pray not will be the Third World War. Because apart from South Africa going this way with Russia, Russia has also put its firm grip across the African continent. And as we speak today, out of 52 countries, close to 20 have strong on Russian influence. Even Nigeria, which is a sad reality because all of our neighbors have big Russian influence in terms of military hardware and boots on the ground. There's a group called the Wagner Group. Mali, Guinea, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Russians are at our backyard. And trust me, they are surveying. They have surveillance. Sergei Lavrov too recently was in Egypt. He'd been talking to Ethiopia. There was some impact on the war that they made, the Russians, as regards the fight recently in Ethiopia. So it is an open invitation of war. And Africans with this have been invited to join the war in Ukraine, which is shaping up as another major conflict. And remember the words of Lumumba, that when the Europeans have their civil disagreements, they call it a world war. Is Africa ready to fight this war, despite the fact that it's just coming out of COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Rufai. I agree totally with what you have sketched out. It is not even the effect of COVID-19 that has not only demoralized but decimated African participation in creation of a world order as one is deteriorating. It is the lack of leadership. In Nigeria, don't say that one is over-focusing on Nigeria, that this is part of our hubris. We think Nigeria, but look, when you look at the resources that are available, when you look at what our military had done in the past, and not even in the too far past, look at what we did in Ecomog without the support of any superpower, and in spite of the infighting within the armed forces itself, we ended up enforcing a Pax Nigeriana in Liberia and in Syria alone and put an end to that civil war. If you read some of the things that the Americans have written about their surprise and their respect for Nigerian troops, Nigerian armed officers in Liberia and in you will see the professional respect. But we then turned our back, and it then became, and it's under this regime. I mean, let's not beat about the bush. It's under this regime that we turned our back on an activist foreign policy and just started concentrating on Boko Haram, the jihadists, and opening our doors to them. The moment Gaddafi was overthrown in Libya, we should have foreseen what was going to happen here. And this, you know, I once met a man, well, since he's dead, I'll mention his name, Chief Adebo, who looked at me one day. He said, I am heartbroken that the country that we envisaged right in his lifetime was going to pieces in terms of administrative thinking, in terms of brain trust and so on. He said, but Balaji, I feel more sorry for your own generation because in your lifetime, this country will go to pieces. And I just wonder what your reaction will be to it. This is part of what has led us to establishing, which we will launch after the election, the Academy of International Affairs. Because we can't see any debate on what Nigeria should be doing, going on at the level at which it will be going on. And members of this academy who are all over 70 retired, therefore they cannot be bullied, are going to be holding, seminars, activities to prompt the mentality of Nigerians into what is going to happen to Nigeria itself. If it is not careful, we need, on the African scene now, leaders who are going to have a vision of what Africa should be doing in the world order. If we don't have that, they will poach us. African unity, I'm sorry, is becoming just as useless as the OAU in its latter days. And it's because of the absence of people like Gaddafi, absence of people like even Thabo Mbeki, absence of, I could name names, you know them, who are no longer on the scene. And we now end up with a whole battery of leaders who are a disgrace on the world scene. I don't know whether I saw your who mentioned something about Russian-African summit coming up. What did we gain from the American-African summit going on? You saw the leader of, is it Gabon? Why was he given a role to play? He couldn't even understand where he was.
Cameroon,
An old man suffering from
Paul
Alzheimer's.
Biya. Paul Biya of Cameroon.
Yes, Cameroon, thank you. Yes, you were given a script to read, but why give him a script? You want to tell me that the Americans didn't know his medical condition? Or are we still playing one head of state is equal to another head of state is equal to another? They're just laughing at us the disposition of Paul Biya. So really, we need a new set of African leaders. What else do you want me to say?
Okay, Prof.
No more Nkrumah, no more Secretary, no more, even the emperor in Ethiopia.
Haile
He had his head well screwed on. Haile Selassie. And yet we know, our so-called socialists were talking about, this man is ancient, we don't need monarchies in Africa again. Look at the people who have replaced them in Ethiopia. Have they done Ethiopia proud? Have they done Africa proud?
Well, Prof, the point is well made that this would look like an error of judgment on the part of the South Africans. But some people have also said that could this be a foreign policy stunt, a bargaining chip to place South Africa in a better situation to negotiate better in trade dealings with the U.S., which has said it is expressing concern about what has happened, or with its major trading partners that are in fact in Europe, Germany, the UK, and then, of course, if you add to that, Japan. So would this be a stunt that could help South Africa to negotiate better, or it will lower South Africa's geopolitical gravitas?
I'm more worried about its impact on Africa itself, because any foreign policy or strategic initiative by a country like South Africa, it may instigate a counter move by the competitors of China and Russia to now themselves decide they are going to have naval exercises with, and they will pick. You want to tell me from Gambia, from Senegal, all the way down. that America will not find allies that it could entice to have military exercises with? Of course, that is my fear. Nobody is going to take this exercise seriously, Dr. Abati. I've just told you, 4 corvettes South African Navy has. Only one in 2 years has gone out into the ocean. They have 3 submarines. None has gone out into the ocean. None in the past 4 years. So what assets are they bringing to this Russia, Chinese naval exercise? What assets are they bringing in? So, I mean, people will laugh. Leave them. But they are giving us an opportunity for us now. Nobody will accuse us of imperialism if we now say we are now going to be having annual exercises with selected African countries in the South Atlantic Ocean. And before you know it, it then becomes a notion not of cooperation, not nuclear free, but a notion of conflict. This is, why I am so worried about what, South Africa has done.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like you to speak also to this race for the African continent in recent times. You just talked about the US-Africa summit, and now in a few months we're going to be going to, well, some African nations will be going to Russia for the Russia-African summit. We've seen an increased interest in investments on the African continent by the Chinese. I mean, Nigeria is a case in point. What is this race for the African continent, particularly by these superpowers, to gain control? And how can the African continent turn to take back ownership in terms of being truly independent rather than being, a pawn in the piece for these superpowers as to who has the most control?
The answer to your first question is that Africa is still the most endowed with mineral and natural resources. Look at the debate on the climate change, which is still the virgin continent left in the world, still with massive forests, still with untapped natural resources. Of course it is Africa. They've decimated Europe. Given the population between China and India, they've decimated Asia. Africa is the only continent left. And please, maybe that will be a topic for another day. The cartographers deliberately created the kind of maps that you have. China, United States, and Europe all will fit into Africa. And there will still be space left if you just look at the square meters of each continent. But the cartographers during the colonial period created this map which makes Africa look like it's just one of the continents. Africa is not just one of the continents, and they know it. So there is this stampede, another Berlin Conference stampede for carving up Africa into spheres of influence. And whichever one you cannot get, well, you try to destabilize by the activities of the jihadists, activities of all kinds of militia running all around the place. For the life of me, who was enticing the Tigrarians who were in power in Ethiopia for 30 years? And then when they lost power, it was then they discovered that they were marginalized. And weapons were then pumped into it to challenge the unity and integrity of Ethiopia. They were supported from abroad, and thank God the Ethiopians were able to face them down. And at the end, you had the agreement that they will what they should have done from the beginning. But they've lost a lot of lives. They've lost, all kinds of things. So they are not going to leave Africa alone. I feel sorry for your generation. Like Chief Adebo said to me that he feels sorry for my generation. I feel sorry for your generation because you are going to face the consequences of this new scramble for Africa. And Africa is not ready for it because we have poor leadership.
Okay, sir. In all of this, let me quote the song of Fela, Beast of No Nation, that says, East-West Bloc versus West Bloc East, waiting united inside United Nation. One veto vote is equal to 92 or more, that Fela sang then. But it seems as if our presidential candidate don't even know this politics going on. What would you say after all this foreign policy talk about our frontline presidential candidate? Do they even understand all of this we've just said?
If they did, they wouldn't all troop like houseboys to Chatham House. And if you look at the audience in Chatham House, they are made up of Nigerians in the diaspora who don't even have the PVC. How many English people did you see in that Chatham House for each one of them? And why that? No, why are we failing? 1959 elections. Did you find Awolowo, Sardauna, Zik, Aminu Kano trooping to Chatham House? No. 1964 elections, did you find them? No. 1979, did Shagari, Awolowo, Zik go to Chatham House? No. This Chatham House syndrome, where you want to be embraced by a foreign community that treats you with contempt, started with Buhari and Dasuki in 2015. It started then. But then I thought we had got over it, that was just a one-off. This year has surprised me to no end. There's something you know that I don't know, or they know that I don't know. Maybe you need the blessing of the British elite to be president of Nigeria. But then they are not addressing our issue.
Okay, sir.
Are they?
Okay, Prof.
When they, when they go there.
Thank you so much, Prof. Really appreciate you for your time. It's time for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Rise News analyst Emmanuel Lefeni joining us in today's newspapers report. So stay with us.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash strapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select Loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Lagos has amassed more wealth than any other state in the country to be the most comfortable city to live in.
Now Lagos is earning 51 billion naira every month.
But even with all that money, this is the Lagos you have now. Bad roads filled with potholes, poor drainage system resulting in floods during rainy season, incessant traffic congestions, increased environmental pollution, poor healthcare system, large-scale child begging, poor security and increased crime rates, impunity of state government officials, lack of clean drinking water, poor transportation system. After years of empty promises, Lagos is now rated as the second worst city to live in the world. How long shall we continue like this? Lagos is not working. We want our Lagos back. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as governor of Lagos State. Jafueko, fight for Lagos.
PDP, power to the people.
Glovo is the app that brings you anything you want. Like a better crispy chicken and chilling after work. Or what you need from the supermarket, sharp sharp. Even some diapers to escape real wahala. Download the app, order a Glovo, and we get it.
Haruna, Bisi, Akman, Unduka, how una wan do on election day?
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu. On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
People of Nigeria, make we all come out on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president. Make Nigeria for better. Make you put your hand for APC, the party where show broom. Not forget now broom you go put your hand in. Bam!
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifini. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Yes, we'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, Emefiele forecloses extension of January 31 deadline for return of old banknotes. National Assembly members kick. House of Representatives set up committee to meet CBN, bank CEOs on redesigned currencies. Apex Bank's governor says about 1.5 trillion naira of old banknotes returned. Clarifies stamp duty row reveals 370.68 billion naira collected in 7 years. Not 89 trillion naira. Audit underway. Declares currency redesign has slowed down kidnapping, ransom taking. Says no cause for alarm over CBN's exposure to federal government. MPC raises MPR to 17.5%. Yes, the CBN governor holding court yesterday after the MPC meeting. And of course, he said he has no good news for those who want extension to the deadline for the return of old bank notes. Yes, but the problem is that in many areas, the new currency is still a scarce commodity. And we hope all the hiccups on the way will be cleared before January 31 deadline. Yes, because, of course, the National Assembly having their own position, asking for extension, will the central bank governor bow to their requests? But the reality on ground, I don't want to blame Nigerians who wait for the last minute, lastminute.com. Yes, I don't think this is the issue now because banks are still dispensing old notes. That is a problem the central bank must deal with, and quickly, before that date. Now, of course, above the masthead, Atiku, I will change our security architecture, grow economy. Tinubu, I will end youth frustration in Nigeria if elected. Yes, the presidential candidates on the campaign trail. You make all promises on the soapbox. Sometimes we ask about the how. But again, when they get the job, whoever gets the job, know that his job is well cut out, given the parlor state of the Nigerian economy right now. So you can make all kinds of promises, but you must also get the money to execute that project when you come to power. Of course, they have experts around them who will provide solutions, as it were. Now, if we look at the Guardian newspaper, the lead story, of course, CBN insists on January 31 deadline. Sean's called for extension. Yes, but reporting Buhari's visit to Lagos, the Guardian newspaper, just below the masthead, is reporting Buhari keeps mum, commissions Blue Line Rail, J.K. Randall Center. And of course, that story is also, of course, in the window story of These Day newspaper. Buhari takes train ride after inaugurating phase 1 of Lagos Blue Rail Line. Witnesses signing of contract for construction of second phase unveils J.K. Randall Center. But if we go to Business Day, reporting the Buhari visit. Yes, above the masthead, Buhari inaugurates Lagos Light Rail he killed 38 years ago. Yes, of course, recall a bit of history there, that LKJ, Lateef Jakonde, the man who did wonders in Lagos, in 4 years he was in power. He was at the verge of building metro line, not this light rail, metro line, because routes were already marked, houses being pulled down, contract awarded, a French firm, and of course entered the Buhari junta. Yes, the coup of 1983, led by Major General Buhari, and that contract was cancelled. Of course, the French firm went to court and collected, got some compensation for breach of contract. So a bit of history there, but thank goodness we have a light rail facility in Lagos now. 13 kilometers, the first phase of the Blue Line, commissioned yesterday. But the Lagos State officials, as Gbenga Omotosho will insist, they prefer to call it inauguration. But what's the difference? I ask Gbenga Omotosho, former editor himself. So, but let's move on to other stories. Now, the Vanguard newspaper, yes, National Assembly, CBN, battle over old naira note deadline. Now, but beside that lead story, constitutional review, National Assembly bows to governors as state assemblies reject local government autonomy. What a blow. But it's not that the governors are bowing to, the National Assembly bowing to the governors. It's just that the governors have had their way. They don't want that autonomy so that they can continue to dip their fingers into local government allocation in the guise of course, the constitutionally provided joint local government account. So they've been able to get the states' houses of assembly not to okay that aspect of the constitutional amendment. So the issue of local government autonomy will wait for another National Assembly to look at it somewhere along the line. And of course, the Nigerian Tribune also has that story above its masthead. Constitutional review. Senate bows to governors on refusal on local government autonomy to transmit 35 bills to Buhari for assent. Reps may consider same report today. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, Buhari chairs 14-man committee as fuel scarcity worsens. DSS, Customs, EFCC, others, members of this committee. President racing against time. Experts. Hawkers sell petrol for 500 naira per litre in Abuja, 600 naira per litre in Ondo. Yes, is this the solution? When you don't want to solve a problem, set up a committee. Yes. Is he chairing this committee in his capacity as Petroleum Resources Minister or as President? Well, whatever it is, Mr. President, we want this problem solved. Nigerians cannot be suffering in their own country blessed with crude oil. Yes, we cannot refine, we import. Yes, we shouldn't be subsidizing. We are spending trillions to subsidize. Where is the petrol? We cannot even distribute effectively. It's a shame. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly, the Times of London, economy is failing to bounce back fast enough. Forecast downgraded before March budget. Yes, the Office of Budget Responsibility told Jeremy Hunt yesterday, the Chancellor, that it overestimated the prospect for medium-term growth in the economy last year, and it intends to revise its forecast down. What that means, 9.2 billion pounds headroom in Hunt's autumn statement. It's not there. And of course, he has to grapple how to fill that hole as he prepares his budget in March. Now, the Daily Telegraph, hammer blow for Putin as Ukraine gets tanks. Yes, Ukraine will be getting tanks from Germany, Leopard tanks, and of course, Abrams tanks from America. That's what newspapers are reporting. Yes.
We seem to be running out of time. The expectation is that by February, Ukraine will get up to about 200 tanks from UK, Poland, Germany, and
Sweden and Finland.
Abrams tanks also from
America,
from the United States. So does this look like NATO getting into that war?
In fact, you literally took that out of my mouth. Is it NATO versus Russia?
And how is that going to play out with Putin threatening to use nuclear missiles? Very quickly, I wanted to comment on the committee on petrol supply that has been set up by the president. Yes, the president is the chair of the party, of the committee, with Chief Timi Presiva, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, as the alternate chairman. Okay, in terms of optics, we've always said the buck stops at the desk of the president. So the president wants to take charge of a fuel supply directly. Just now, with how many days to the election, with the government almost on its way out, how much difference would that make? You know, that's the big question.
Of setting up a committee?
The second issue is that if you look at that committee, right, the key people who have been arguing about this fuel supply issue, they are not there. The independent marketers, petrol marketers are not there. IPMA. The Major Oil Marketer Association of Nigeria, they are not represented. There is another group called DAPMAN. Those ones, the Depots and Petroleum Products Association of Nigeria. They are not part of that committee. The 14-member committee is made up of just government officials.
So that's what I'm
sitting
asking.
down with the
why
president.
Are they setting up a committee?
Well, in any case.
Is this not the same government people?
In any case, I don't want to put down a committee chaired by the president. But there are no major stakeholders there. What you have there is DSS, EFCC, Governor Central Bank, CG, Customs, Director General, Civil Defense Corps. The marketers, the distributors, they have identified the issues. The issues are in plain sight. Why don't they just go ahead straight and address those issues?
After 2 months of suffering, they are just setting up committees.
And
promises.
After 2 months.
That committee is unnecessary.
After 2 months of
Let them solve the problem.
After DSS said 48 hours, we'll solve the problem.
We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Gbenga Omotosho, Commissioner for Information, Lagos State. Stay with us. Be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Yesterday I got a call from Globe. I want a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car. I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won. 24 brand new cars. 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
Papa, mama, brother, sister, this Lagos must work for all of us. Everybody down Fueko.
Oh yes, Lagos people, papa, mama, sister, brother, auntie, plus including uncle them. Better don't land for Lagos State gidigba. Money will be for Lagos State, then go use them for Lagos State. Wella, no more baba sope. Then no go chop Lagos State money. Nobody go pocket Lagos State. Then go take and build Lagos State, build road, build hospital, build houses, and now only one man fit do this job. His name na Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor. He can't carry one obonge person as a deputy governor. Her name na Funke Akindele Jennifer. My people, what do we wait for? Make we vote for light, vote for change. No be the kind change where they vote before. This one na the original change. How Amumu don't do. Pay they pay.
Everybody down Fueko.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. President Muhammadu Buhari has unveiled the Blue Line Rail project in Lagos. It's one of several projects he inaugurated on his 2-day official visit to Lagos State. Arise correspondent Tokumbo Oyetunji reports.
Day 2 of President Buhari's official visit to Lagos. It started with more projects commissioning, beginning with the Jean Rando Center for Yoruba Culture and History at Onikon. A short distance away from there is the Marina Terminal of the Lagos Blue Line Rail project, scheduled to be inaugurated as part of the President's itinerary for the state visit on the second day.
Emma to the left, Emma to the right.
There was excitement in the air as the #1 citizen unveiled the plaque signifying the official start of operation for the Lagos Metro service. But hold on a second for speeches to explain what the Blue Line is all about and what it means for the emerging mega city.
It's expected to move 250,000 candidates when it begins commercial sector. Today, Mr. President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, history is being made as we gather from different The benefits, Mr. President, are obvious. It will reduce travel time, it will improve the quality of life of our citizens, and it will make Lagos one of the most resilient mega cities, not only in Africa, but it will compete with other mega cities in the world. And Mr. President, it is also on track that we will be commissioning the Red Line before the end of your administration. That, in fact, is even a bigger, better, longer rail corridor, which we're excited with the collaboration of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, where we're sharing the rail corridor.
Signing of more agreements for the next phase of the project. And then, that moment when the president and other officials hopped on the train for the first ride before it opens to the public.
It will grow the economy of Lagosians, and when it comes to timing, it saves more time for them, so that they can do after much time to do their business and carry out an assignment, daily assignments and activities.
One of the things that make a mega city is the train system. Lagos happens to be one of the mega cities of the world without train system. And of course, if you look at Lagos State, if you look at our population of over 20 million people, and then the downfall that we are using cannot solve our problem, and it's affecting us economically because transportation drives the economy. So if you're able to get people to their destination, that means it's going to impact positively on the economy of the state, and this is exactly what we have been able to do.
And with what we saw on ground today at the commissioning ground, the pride, everything about this excellent job that has been put on ground, you could read it on everybody's face.
Some historic moments for Lagos, Nigeria's commercial nerve center, as the city's metro line, its first phase has just been unveiled by President Muhammadu Buhari, who equally witnessed the signing of the contract for the second phase of the project, after which he was joined by other dignitaries, including Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, his cabinet members, as well as other Nigerians, to embark on the first ride of the service. We are on what I call the second ride of the service for the day from Marina to the National Theatre end, and we can confirm to you that the journey takes exactly 9 minutes to travel. The authorities have equally assured us that the Red Line will come on anytime before the end of this year. That's some real transformation happening to the ever chaotic transportation sector in the city that is most populous in Nigeria. Tokunbo Oyetuji, Arise News, Lagos.
Thank you, Tokumbo. Joining us now on the show is Gbenga Omotosho, Commissioner for Information, Lagos State. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the morning show.
Thank you. Well, I'm curious about something. This is the second time the Lagos State government will be inaugurating this blue rail line. There was an inauguration in December. There's another one again in January. What's the difference? And when exactly will passenger services commence? And then secondly, as an editor, columnist, commentator, and everything, I'd like you to comment on the irony of President Buhari being the person, again inaugurating and signing the contract, for the second phase of this same blue rail line. Considering, as Business Day pointed out on his front page today, that the president is commissioning the same project that he killed 38 years ago. That was how Business Day put the story on their front page.
Thank you so much. First, let me, on behalf of Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, thank the people of Lagos for the wonderful reception they gave to the president while he visited for 2 days. And then talking about the commissioning of the Blue Line that President Buhari performed yesterday. What happened the other time which you spoke of wasn't the commissioning of the project itself. It was the completion of the infrastructure, all of the tracks, all of the everything, the signalization, everything that we needed to say this is ready for commissioning. That was what happened at that time. It wasn't the commissioning of the service itself, of the Blue Line completely, and to say that public can now use it, it is ready for use. What happened at that time was the completion of the infrastructure. And I think, like everybody, you feel that it's like when you complete a house, you can now bring people in to come and see it and then do a kind of test run. The test run continues now, even after the commissioning by Mr. President, so that people will know how to use the services, how to use the turnstile, the kind of places they can study the place, how to go to, how to see the conveniences there, and all of the things. So I'm talking about the running of President Buhari coming to inaugurate the project. I do not see anything untoward in it. As for us in Lagos, it's a thing of joy. We are not talking about whether this particular project was stopped at some time or not. This particular one that we are talking about is quite different from the one you are talking about, the Metro Line. This one was conceptualized by the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, and then successive administrations after that, they've been following up on the thing until Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu promised, resolved that he was going to complete it, and thank God he has completed it now. So anybody is now going into this of President Buhari about 43 years ago stopped the project is not the complete story.
All right, thank you. So there was a question around when would it be open to the public officially? So when can the Lagos residents start to use the Blue Rail Line? Is it from today?
Now, we are going to be taking people, journalists, professional associations, engineering
for another
groups.
inauguration?
No. On board for them to see how it's going to run, for them to see what what it looks like, for them to see how to use all the facilities before we now say people should come on board and pay.
Okay. Is there a timeline for this?
Not any moment from now. It's no more any big deal. Yesterday, there were hundreds of people on board, and everything was safe and everything was fine. So it's no big deal at all.
Okay.
Let me just ask on timelines, because I was just wanting him to complete Doctor's question. Still on timeline, yesterday the president witnessed the signing of the MOU between for the construction of the second phase of the rail line.
Right.
At the beginning, when this was announced, the president had said the governor had said the blue and red line rail would be open and ready by December of 2022. So we've missed that mark. Do you know when the red line rail would be completed? And then, just timelines for Lagosians, because like we've seen, it's such a beautiful and useful tool for transportation, but we also want to know when we'll be able to start using it.
The red line, like Mr. Governor said, is going to be completed and inaugurated first quarter of this year. It has a lot of work, but the beautiful thing and the symbolic thing about it is that the red line was started by Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu during his administration, and he promised that during his administration, this first time, he's going to complete it. And I assure you it's going to be completed. There has been delays about building all the overpasses because we are building so many. And then the weather didn't help matters at all. We thought that the rains were going to stop early enough, but they couldn't. So the contractors were a bit delayed. But now the work is almost done. And any moment from now, maybe this first quarter is going to be completed and inaugurated.
Okay, kudos and congratulations. We all want to see this level of development in Lagos, which we're excited about. And I can't wait to get on the train, myself. But real quickly, how is it powered? I understand it's electricity powered. Was there an electricity line that powered the first two journeys that we had on this rail line already?
This blue line is the first of its type in Africa that is going to be powered by its own electricity. It has its own dedicated IPP. So, and apart from that, I think there are about 4 power sources. So the question of you're on the train and then there is a power outage and we begin to panic is out of it.
Have the electricity lines been built?
The electricity lines, yes, built.
Okay, but did it power the first two, the first two tests?
It was used yesterday.
Okay, it was the electricity that powered it yesterday.
Yeah, it was used yesterday. And then the most important thing about this is that Lagosians have been warned that this is not a time, the kind of tracks on which you can go and be displaying wares. It's been fenced off, and there are notices all over the place telling people not to go near the tracks because they are electrified. Anybody who goes there, it could be fatal. Not just it could be fatal, it's fatal for anybody to go there. So it's all powered by electricity.
Okay.
Okay. There's another project that the president also visited yesterday, shown on the screen. That's the J.K. Randu Center for Yoruba Culture and History. And I understand it's around the Unicon Stadium, where you have the National Museum. Can you tell us about that? And, what the goals are in terms of promoting tourism and preserving culture and history?
First, a correction about the name. It's not J.K. Randu. It's J. Randu, John Randu, not J.K. Randu. John Randu, Center for Yoruba Culture and History.
John Randu is the father.
Is the father.
J.K. Randu is the son.
No, J.K. Randu is just the Randu family. This one is a white man who donated this for public use, a swimming pool. This was first built in 1928. And the bold attempt by the government of Mr. Biden to just refurbish the swimming pool. But then we had the other grandiose ideas of how to use this place as a tourist site, of how to attract a tourism and build it's a kind of the urban regeneration program of the Biden Sanwo-Olu administration around Unicon, where you have this facility, which is the first of its kind, at least here in Lagos. There are other tourist attractions, tourist sites that people can visit. So this one started as an attempt to revive that swimming pool that was built in 1928, and now it's become something very big, where you can learn about Yoruba culture, the impact of Yoruba culture on our music, on our arts, on every architecture, on everything that has to do with Yoruba history, and where you can see all of those things that our people may have forgotten that they belong to us, some artifacts that have been brought from overseas, and so many other things that have to do with Yoruba history. So for us in Lagos, it's an edifice that we are proud of, because it's symbolic of our attempt to make our young ones to realize that history is very important, to realize that Yoruba culture is very rich, to realize that Yoruba culture is something that we need to sell to the world. And a bold attempt by the government to invite and attract tourists to this central part of Lagos.
Who is going to manage that center? Because I recall that sometime in the past, another administration in Lagos State built, like a mini theater in some part of Lagos. That appears to have been abandoned. What is the plan for managing this and sustaining it as a center for culture?
Now, the mini theaters are alive and they are running, apart from, I think, one of them that was destroyed when we had riots in Lagos. But this particular one is going to be managed by consultants who are experts in that field. And when you get there, you will see the signs and symbols that these guys who are going to be managing it, they really know their onions and they know what to do. These are people who have a world experience. These are people who know what the kind of this kind of place should be and what it symbolizes for us. So it's going to be managed with third sense of seriousness and with very high technical expertise of people who are going to be managing it and running it. There are people that you will be proud of. If you get there, you see the facilities, how solid they are, how good they are, and you know that you really need serious people to maintain them. And we are such people.
Talking about the culture of maintenance, my question was actually going to be around maintenance of the rail line. One of the things we've talked about is that when infrastructure is built for the people, after a while, it is abandoned. Is there a plan in terms of, are there contracts for ensuring that, it looks so beautiful looking at the video, but maintenance. And then on price, do you have an idea of how much it would cost for Lagosians to use this rail line, and how you've talked about using the Cowrie contactless card for payments, which can be used across other transportation vehicles provided by the Lagos State government. Could you tell us a bit more about that, please?
first, the price is not something that is going to cut anybody's neck. Everywhere in the world, transportation is not something that the government relies on to make huge revenue. But what I can tell Lagosians is that they should just look at the gains of this facility. I mean, it reduces journey time, all of the stress that we go through, the journey from Marina now to Mile 2 that takes by road about 2 hours in the best of time is now going to be about less than 20 minutes. And yesterday, we rode on that train to go to National Theatre and come back less than 10 minutes. So he says that comfort that Lagosians, that they deserve, that the government is looking at, not even how much to charge or anything that will make anybody to complain. I can assure you it's not the price that they are going to charge that will make anybody to complain about high prices. And then talking about maintenance, don't forget, it's going to be run by people who are really experienced, people who have done it in London, in Chicago, so many other places all over the world where you have this kind of facility. And then so many of our young people, they are going to be working here. And young engineers who have been trained to keep these facilities running and alive all of the time. So maintenance of it, and then the engineers who are the builders, they are still around, putting our people through. They have been working with them. So the maintenance of it is nothing to worry about.
Okay, so just some quick clarification. It was John Randall, which was a Sierra Leonean, which is actually the grandfather of J.K. Randall, you know. Okay. And he built the swimming pool in the 1920s because a lot of Lagosians were drowning in the water and the seas then. So he built it as a community service to be able to teach them how to swim. So I know a fair amount of that project because I was part of it. I want to specifically ask about most of the artifacts is in partnership with the London Museum. Right. How is that conversation going? You know, what's the Ministry of Tourism doing as regards keeping those conversations and exploring other areas? And concerning the Immortal Rice Mill, I want to ask, hope you have paddy stock, because that's always a problem with good rice mills. If you don't have a paddy stock, what's the steady supply of paddy like for that rice mill? Just two questions as we wrap up.
Well, for the John Randall Museum, you are correct that it's a family that we are handed over to the government from generation to generation. But the thing is that it's not, since it's been taken away from the family, the government has felt that it should do something about it. It was donated as a public, for public use, because it was not being well managed by people who were there before. It was run down. So this, what the government has done is a bold attempt to revive it and put other facilities there, like an exhibition center for about 1,000 square meters, which you can visit and see the artifacts that you are talking about. And those artifacts that you are talking about coming from the London Museum, Mr. Governor himself has been there with some of our officials to have discussions with them. And I feel that the discussions are fine. I'm sure that some of the artifacts may have even come in here. If they are not here yet, I'm sure very soon they will be here, because all of that has been settled.
All right, as regards the Immortal Rice Mill, is there a steady stream of paddy?
Yeah, there's going to be a steady stream of paddy. Rice is well grown almost all over Southwest. And then now the farmers are going to have correct prices for their sweat. They are going to be, so many people are now going into it because they have seen that Immortal Rice Mill has come alive. But apart from that, before we started the factory, we have we connected so many companies that can supply paddy. We encourage farmers to form cooperatives and then encourage them to get facilities for them to be able to improve on their yield. And then some of them even got seedlings that are very good enough that can make their yield to at least double. So getting paddy, we have done everything to put that steady. And I think, it's well grown all over in some parts of the country too. We are in touch with them.
How about everybody's farms?
Yeah, everybody's excited to come and supply the Lagos Rice Mill Immortal paddy. So I do not think it's going to be a problem at all.
Okay, Omotosho, just before you go, maybe this will be a takeaway. Someone sent this, somebody you know very well, I don't want to mention his name. He says, the current head of Randall family is up in arms against the Lagos state government on the way the land was taken from the family without consultation. You may wish to ask Benga about this. J.K. Randu is the head of the family. I don't know whether you know the details.
Well, I have seen some things flying around on social media about this particular argument about how it was taken and all of that. But the question is that people should now look at if a facility is donated for public use and then it was run down and nobody was taking care of it and it was abandoned, became an orphan, and the government of Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu is saying, no, this cannot happen right in the heart of Lagos. And it has come around to say, let us fix this place. And everybody has seen it now. The whole world has seen it on television everywhere, what the facility has become. So I do not think the talk about the family, not in agreement with what the government has done, how the land was taken, should now be a question now. The question is that this thing is for public use and it's for public good and it's for the good of all of us and it's for the good, it's symbolic of what we as Lagosians can do, to make things better, not, time for us to be arguing about who did what, who did not do what.
Okay, on that note, Honorable Commissioner for Information, Lagos State, Benga Omotosho, would like to thank you very much. We'll take a short break now. When we return, Ojinika Upe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and check balance. You don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN. And when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So, it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
As a player, there's nothing better than the roar of your crowd. But in Nigeria, there's a roar that may not be heard again. With fewer than 50 lions left, they could be extinct in the next few years, from loss of habitat and prey, and snares set for illegal bushmeat. So please, say no to illegal bushmeat. Let's keep the roar alive for Nigeria, because poaching steals from us all.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, we vote. Vote is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Yeah. Vote is the answer. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business, we vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Vault is the answer.
Esther, you're late again. Esther,
She's a wonder, a light in the darkness. She's beautiful. Oh, she's a superstar. She never let her mama down. She's beautiful. She know they fear. She know they ever got a hand for her.
No phones at the table, please. Esther. I love you too.
Got everything? Don't forget I'll pick you at 4.
Airtel, the smartphone network. There is only one place that the world will come to run on Saturday the 4th of February 2023. Over bridges, waterfronts, running across 10 kilometers and 42 kilometers of asphalt. Access Bank Lagos City Marathon will be targeting 100,000 runners from around the world, ready to flood the streets of Lagos. The 10-kilometer race will set off at 6:30 a.m. at the Grace Court Garden Events Place, Durosimi Eti, Lekki Phase 1, while the 42-kilometer race will also set off at 6:30 a.m. in front of the iconic National Stadium, Surulere, and both races will finish on top of the sandy shores of the stunning Eco Atlantic City. From Oshodi to Oworu, Alakbere to Admiralty, Ikoyi to Eco Atlantic, the race is routed through the warm, meandering feet blistering streets of this historic city. So what are you waiting for? Get ready to push beyond the limit. Access Bank Lagos City Marathon 2023. Make it count.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojinika Ojiope with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinex.
Good morning, Dr. Abati.
How are you?
So happy this morning. Good. Morning. Great. Good morning, Ayo. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Perfect. Good morning,
Your Bontori, you're just sparkling. Shannon, can I call you Shannon Wale? You're sparkling
you have to tell me what it means.
I say when you sparkle and you walk inside, it's called Shannon Wale.
Oh, very nice. I will learn every day. Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday inaugurated the first phase of the Lagos Blue Rail Line and took a ride from the Marina Station to the National Theatre Station in Lagos mainland. The president took the train ride along with the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, his deputy, Obafemi Hamzat, and other dignitaries. The first phase of the project boasts of 5 stations and spans 13 kilometers. Then, the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his opponent in the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, on Tuesday took their campaigns to the southeast and south-south, respectively. The PDP had its rally at the Stephen Keshi Stadium in Asaba, Delta State, while the APC held its rally at the Umuahia Township Stadium in Abia State. Bola Ahmed Tinubu was accompanied by the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, while Atiku Abubakar was accompanied by his running mate, Ifeanyi Okowa, the governor of Delta State. Under sports, the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy have accused Formula One's governing body, the FIA, of suppressing drivers' freedom of speech with a rule it introduced this year, which forbids the general making and display of political, religious, and personal statements or comments, notably in violation of the general principle of neutrality promoted by the body under its statutes. The rights group suggested that the rule appears to be a reaction to seven-time Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton raising such concerns. Finally, on our entertainment, nominations for the 95th Academy Awards were announced on Tuesday, and the multiverse-keeping sci-fi indie hit Everything Everywhere All at Once led with 11 nominations, including nods for Michelle Yeoh, making her the first Asian actor nominated for Best Actress. The nominations were announced from the Academy's Samuel Goldwyn Theater in Beverly Hills, California. For the first time, two sequels, Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water, were nominated for Best Picture.
Lift me up.
Then, Afrobeat star Temilade Okpeni, popularly known as Tems, was nominated for her role in Lift Me Up, her collaborative work with Rihanna in the Best Original Song category. Lift Me Up was one of the soundtracks on Marvel's Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Rihanna co-wrote the soulful song with Tems, producer Ludwig Göransson, and director Ryan Coogler. It is the first Oscar nomination for the 27-year-old star, who has now made history as the first Nigerian artist to get an Oscar nomination.
Well, congratulations to Temilade Okpeni. We have our fingers crossed for her. Hope she wins. Well, let's begin what's trending. The Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party on Tuesday raised the alarm that the party's presidential candidate, Peter Obi, was attacked by hoodlums in Katsina State on his way to the airport after a rally in the state. Diron Onifade, the party's head of media, in a statement condemned the attack, alleging that the attacks may have been orchestrated by desperate politicians because of Obi's outing in the state. Reporting on the incident, the media aide stated that the hoodlums threw heavy stones at Peter Obi's car, causing substantial damage to his vehicle, and that another set of thugs threw stones outside the stadium where they held their rally and damaged several vehicles. Peter Obi had met with women in a town hall and then held a hugely successful rally at the Mohammed Diko Stadium, where he promised to end insecurity and poverty if elected.
Since I left Anambra State, they've not bought me a bottle of water. I gave land to everybody, several land. Go and check. Not one piece of land was given to me by government of Anambra State. Other people give their wife, give their children. My children, I did not do contract. My children did not contract. No consultancy job. Nothing. That's what we want. I will fight corruption. I want to end people stealing public money. They will come here and tell you they have structure. That structure is structure of poverty, structure of no light, structure of killing, structure of insecurity. That structure is structure we want to take away. I bring structure of human being. You voted for umbrella. You leaked. And nearly hunger came on you. You voted for broom. They're sweeping you into hunger. Now we want you to vote for human being. So you can work. That's what we want you to do. Vote for Labour Party. Yes. Go there and look for LP. Mama, Papa, Iki, human being. No more broom. No more this. You young people, the youth, this is your party. This is your future. We want to build a future for you. With that, if you look at it, our government is coming down with age. If you look at me, if you go, APC chairman is 75 years. PDP chairman is over 70 years. Our chairman is 52 years. something. If you combine the other one, they are 70. The other one, we don't know their age at all. We cannot continue this way.
Well, in another development, reactions have trailed the endorsement of Labour Party presidential candidate by Islamic preachers in Kano State as Nigeria's next president. Some of the followers of the group who spoke to an NTA reporter said the decision to endorse Obi ahead of the forthcoming presidential election was based on his integrity, character, competence, accountability, and track record, and that the endorsement was not in Kano State alone, but across the northern region.
Stand before you today to endorse the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, His Excellency Peter Obi. We have carefully evaluated the stances and policies of all the candidates, and I have come to the conclusion that His Excellency Peter Obi is the best choice for our nation.
Occasion, we just make it to endorse Peter Obi by Islamic clerics here not only in Kano, in the northern part of Nigeria.
There's no religion in politics. We are just focused on integrity and accountability. So all of these characters, all these good behaviors, is His Excellency Peter Obi of Labour Party. He is the one of all of the presidential candidates that has it, so that is why we Islamic preachers, we know the East, we know the East, we are here to solidarity and endorse to defeat Obi as a president Federal Republic of Nigeria in this coming election 2023.
Well, Dr. Abati, Peter Obi has had successful campaigns in the northern region. I mean, people are calling this endorsement by Islamic preachers a game changer. But also my first story is condemnable. The act of those hoodlums attacking his vehicle. Like Dira Onifade said, it might have been orchestrated by political opponents. I thought that, it was very absurd that happened to Peter Obi in Kano State, and, the authorities should look into it. Dr. Abati.
Well, one of the major concerns about this electoral process in 2023 is about the threat of violence and the menace of insecurity. And when you talk about the possibility of violence, it can be before the election, during the election, and after. And that's why, consistently, we've been calling on the security agencies to ensure that there is peace. Now, there's a National Peace Committee led by General Abdul Salami Abubakar, Bishop Hassan Kuka, the Sultan of Sokoto, and others. That National Peace Committee has met with the political parties twice. Now, agreements are signed there with all the parties promising to ensure that there is peace. But one point we have made is that, yes, the political leaders may say we will give peace a chance. How about the rank and file? This is a major concern because you don't want a situation whereby the election is derailed, either before or during or after. And what we are seeing, what happened to Mr. Peter Obi and his entourage in Katsina State, is an indication that as we get closer to the election, people are going to get more and more desperate. And I think, this must be a wake-up call for the security agencies, particularly the police. And second, political parties and the candidates themselves, in this case, Mr. Peter Obi, they probably need to pay closer attention to their personal security. It's a good thing that Mr. Peter Obi did not suffer any direct physical harm, but vehicles, we were told, were destroyed. Windscreens were, shattered by persons who were throwing big stones at his convoy as he made his way to the airport, and even at the venue of that rally. That's one leg of it. The second leg of the matter is his endorsement by those Islamic preachers who came together and said, well, in terms of character and integrity, this is not about religion. They think that Mr. Peter Obi is their choice. Well, this is a season of endorsements. After all, the other day, a group of bishops, whether fake or real, whether properly clothed or otherwise, also, identified with a particular candidate, presidential candidate. So you are likely to see bishops, you are likely to see preachers, because all these persons too, I mean, they are Nigerians, they are part of it, and they have the right to identify with whoever they like. But for Mr. Peter Obi, it must be gratifying that in parts of the North, he has people endorsing him. And it's, an indication of the, impact that he has been able to make, in terms of his campaigns. Nobody gave him a chance in terms of structures, but he keeps saying at his campaigns that the people are the structures. And, we'll see how that works out at the end of the day.
All right.
Yeah.
Rufai, I heard you cracking up with that Peter Obi's video.
When did Peter Obi to start throwing water and shade? They have corrupted Peter Obi. Jesus Christ, a lot of water, stray bullets everywhere. Mr. Peter Obi, please, we are calling for fairness. Don't throw stray bullets. Focus on what you campaign about. Tell people what you will do for them. We can't allow people to be dragged into throwing stray bullets. We always caution other people. And this is out there, please. We need to caution our politicians. It's not about attacking the opponents. Talk about the policies. Talk about the ideas. Please. That's what we want in this campaign. And for those that try to attack the convoy, we have normalized violence in this country, which is sad. I remember when Atiku Abubakar's convoy too was stoned in Borno. Till today, they are still investigated. Have they arrested people? No. So those that did this, Mr. Peter Obi, to be investigated, to be arrested also, because this cannot continue in this country.
Absolutely.
We can't keep having a case where all of this happens. But please, Mr. Peter Obi, focus on the ideas and the agenda. Don't even talk about the opposition. Don't even abuse anybody. Focus on the things you're going to do for now. Just like I advise the opposition, stop abusing Peter Obi and all your other opposition candidates. Focus.
All right.
Because you see, the more you abuse people in a crowd, they are jeering you on, but you are sowing the seed of discord and enmity in that crowd. And that's what leads to people stoning each other. Please, tamper it down. And please, for somebody that threw the biggest shade yesterday, that was unnecessary.
We'll take that story.
Okay, you take that. Oh my God,
Right,
that was...
I actually think it's a bit difficult for you to be in a campaign without making reference to what the other person had done. I do agree, you don't have to insult the person, but you can speak to the issues of what they stood for, or, the things that they did. He talked about contract awarding and the likes and said he wouldn't do that. I think that's a bit different from saying that I cannot mention his name because it's not worth the saliva that I'll use to say it. There's a difference between insulting someone based on their health and all that, and actually talking about what they did or what they stood for. Now, in terms of the attacks, this reminds me of yesterday, the headlines around Mr. Tonya Cole, what's going on in River State. This should not be an election of violence. And so you wonder, it would be great to see what security agencies and INEC are doing, especially in regards to investigating these claims that the opponents are sending thugs against these candidates. We have to come to a point in our nation's history where we don't have to have elections that are characterized by violence, not just physical violence, but even verbal violence, as we've often said on this show. So Mr. Tonya Cole has asked the president to declare a state of emergency in River State because the opposition party of the governor, or all opposition parties of the ruling party, are consistently being prevented from going to their rally grounds, speaking to the people, and different things are being signed, and it is just obstructive to people exercising their right to campaigning. We must deal with this decisively, and to speak to the people. Do not be used as a tool for destruction. At the end of the day, it's just a game of politics.
Right. All right, we shall take another story. Social media was awash with reactions on Tuesday after the spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party's Presidential Campaign Council, Dino Melaye, posted a video of himself deliberately falling to the ground repeatedly during the party's presidential campaign rally held in Delta State with the caption, Emi Lokon Olule, in an apparent dig at the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, in the video, Dino sang along to the controversial song composed by some members of the National Association of Sea Dogs, known as the Pirates Confraternity, to mock the APC flag bearer. Let's take a look at the video before we take some reactions. Rufai, this is who you were referring to. But let me take some tweets quickly. Well, this is from Jerry, who wrote, Egbo, this is unacceptable in a modern democratic dispensation. I am not an APC supporter. This is absurd and portrays incivility. Respect your elders. The giver of good health is God. You may find yourself in such circumstances. Life is unpredictable. Politics should be played decently. Well, Sports wrote, I'm watching a 49-year-old man make a fool of himself all in the name of trolling an opponent, and I don't see the funny part of it. Dino Melaye falling on the podium twice, trying to mimic Tinubu is another height of stupidity. Well, another tweet there goes, guess one thing I will miss after this election season is the different drama displayed by these politicians from Wike to Tinubu and then to this. It would have been better if they focus more on how to reduce the 133 million Nigerians in multi-dimensional poverty and other issues. Rufai,
I mean, it's quite... So, Mr. Festus Keyamo replied to that thing. He said, Obama's rival in 2008 election, Senator John McCain, had a deformity in one hand. Obama showed him respect, never mocked him, but there was a VP candidate laughing as a clown, as somebody fall on stage to mock another candidate. It's the height of imbecility. They go Nigerians an apology. That's Festus Keyamo's report. I think Mr. Dino Melaye should not have done that. It is wrong. We can't keep doing that. We can't reduce this. Just like I said for Mr. Peter Obi again, we can't reduce these campaigns to vitriol. There are a lot of issues that can be talked about. We can't reduce the campaign to vitriol about this and no. I will be objective and I'll be very fair.
Yeah.
Well, but going further, an extreme Mr. Keyamo's tweet. So is it an indication now that something might be wrong with the candidate because you said, you are making an allusion to John McCain? And secondly, this is why I've always gone back to the point that every presidential candidate must produce health records.
Well, all right.
John McCain couldn't raise his hand beyond a certain point. Do you know why he couldn't? The whole of America knew that John McCain was a POW, was a prisoner of war, and his hand was badly beaten and damaged, and that's why he can't raise his hand beyond a certain extent. What is the medical record of all of our presidential candidates? And that's what we're asking again this time around.
Dr. Bati, really quickly.
Well, it's not only Festus Keyamo that has complained. There's also one Dr. Joseph Ono who says, Dino Melaye is suffering from hubris, falling down all over the place. Well, Dino Melaye is 49, 50 or so. Well, he should be careful how he falls down, up and down, so that he doesn't go and have a slip disc in the process of trying to, mimic or, troll somebody, to use your word. So he has to be careful. Nobody will get award for falling down, whether for comical reasons or for more serious reasons.
Well,
thank you very much,
I wish we had more time, Ayo.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for a great analysis, as always. Well, that's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you all tomorrow.
And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Rotus Odiri will be here next to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's the Arise News Channel.
This is a different kind of energy. That's gang energy.